Alright, in the previous tutorial we wrote a program that displays the message hello world to the screen, and we displayed that and it said hello world. Now when you're using C++, it can be very tedious to use std shouts all the time, and so that can be annoying. So every time you want to display a message, let's say we have to do all this stuff, we have to do that every single time and use std out. Well, that can get annoying and repetitive. I compiled and executed it. So instead of having to type out std out, we can just use it once by saying that we are using the standard library. We're using namespace standard library std. This way we can go ahead and remove this, remove that, and remove that as well. And so every time we want to render to the screen, we don't have to render standard library :shout. We can straight up use shout and display the message to the screen. Okay, now I said in the last tutorial that we're going to be getting some information from the user. Well, to get information from the user, we use another part of the standard library, and that's like this. It's an input stream. But first, let's declare a variable that's going to hold the message that we want to get, or the input that we want to get from the user. And we can do that by declaring a string. And a string, we're going to say name. Okay, and string is part of the C++ standard library up here. And you can also declare it by saying something like std : but since we already said we're using this namespace std, we don't have to do that, and we can just straight up say we're using the string, and we're going to make a instance of that string called name. And now let's get the name of the user from the keyboard, and we can say what is your name? So the user, we're prompting the user to enter their name so they know what to expect. And now we're going to say get input from the keyboard, and see how we're using a different arrow here. For input we go this way, and we're saying name, and that's it. And now we can display the name, thank you, and the user's name. Now if we run it, it says hello world, an execution over here, another message, and then we declare the variable and we say what is your name, and we go ahead and get that name, and here we can say Solidus code. Then we press enter. When you press enter, it stops reading from the keyboard, and then it says thank you Solidus, and that's it. Now you can declare a whole bunch of other variables. Here we can do something like an integer and say age, and we can change the prompt to what is your age, and here we'll read and see how Eclipse gives you an error because you no longer have the variable name declared. So we're going to change this over here to age, and we're going to change this to age as well. And then now this should read an integer from the keyboard. It says hello world, another message, what is your age? And we're let's say 1,000 or 1,000 because we're just that great. So it displays the message 1,000. Thank you, we're 1,000 years old. So it's pretty easy. You can also declare doubles like I don't know, miles. What is your mileage? Let's say mpg, mpg, mpg. This will allow you to enter a decimal number. That is and press enter, of course, and it displays that value to the screen. And then we can use these variables to do a whole bunch of things depending on what your application is intended to do. Let's see, there's also a character type of variable that you can declare, and we'll call it C. And this is used to only enter in 1 byte of information. And we can say C, what is your character? We can build it and run it, and we can say C. Thank you, C. If we run it again and we enter more than 1 character, it still gets to only 1. It still reads only 1 because we're only expecting 1 byte of information to be stored. And if you're not already aware, an integer is 32 bits. A double is 64-bit. A float is 32-bit. An integer, no, I'm sorry, a character is 8 bits or 1 byte. Let's see, can I think of other ones? A string is not really, a string is a class, so it's a little different. Its size depends on the number of, it's an array, it's a dynamic shifting array. So we'll talk about that more in detail in later tutorials, but right now just suffice to say those are some of the variable types available to you to use at this time. Alright, so in the next tutorial we'll talk about if statements and do some more cool C++ things.